Let's dive in. These phrases are not just words, they are tools of empowerment for you, specially crafted to help you reclaim your voice so that in the face of manipulation and control, you've got something to do, something to say. And I know that they work. You know why I know? Because I've been recognized as one of the top attorneys in the country. And I've got a USA Today best-selling book, Slay the Bully, How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win. And I've got millions and millions of views on this channel. So if you're new here and you haven't subscribed to this channel, what are you waiting for? Make sure that you subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any future videos. So number one is I respectfully disagree. When a narcissist tries to belittle you, tries to belittle your opinion, calmly state, I respectfully disagree. It asserts your stance without escalating conflict. So what you want to do is you want to be able to have that invisible Teflon boundary that comes down around you so that you can start to look at them as if they are a little toddler having a tantrum on the floor and that you can step back. I say stop, swap, and soar, right? And then you just stop, look at them. I respectfully disagree. And you can take your moment and step back. No, they're not going to like it, but it will be very healing and helpful for you. So that's phrase number one. So, number two, I understand that's how you feel. It acknowledges their feelings without validating their unjust accusations. You don't want to have to deal with their false accusations. And that's something that I know you have to deal with all the time. And if you are dealing with that, I've got a free Crush My Negotiation prep worksheet, which you can get at winmynegotiation.com. Definitely grab that because it will help you. I've had lots and lots of people get it. I understand that's how you feel. That's a really good one too. Number three is no, thank you. I mean, simple yet powerful. This phrase sets a very clear boundary. Do they like boundaries? No, but it helps you. These again are helping you reclaim your voice. That's what this is about, right? Your voice. Number four, I need to think about that. Again, you get to take a pause. Hit that pause button. Use this when a narcissist demands a quick decision to pressure you. Don't allow yourself to be pressured. Don't allow yourself to be in a situation where you have to be pressured into feeling like you have to do something, especially when they're getting ready to ask you to sign something. Never sign something without knowing what you're going to sign, without knowing what you're going to do. I've seen it over and over and over again, especially as a lawyer. No, thank you. Or I need to think about that. Both of those phrases together are very, very good. Just put no, thank you. I want you to put that in the comments right now. No, thank you. Number five is that doesn't work for me. And it's actually kind of a soft one. That doesn't work for me. Asserts your needs while the narcissist is proposing their agenda on you, right? Have them stop putting that agenda over your head, especially things that aren't reasonable, which is, kind of like a lot all the time, right? I need to think about this. It doesn't work for me. All these are helping you assert your voice. And if you need support, join my free private Facebook group. It'll be very helpful for you. Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. Good stuff. Next one. Ooh, this is a good one. This is a good one. Let's stick to the facts. What do? They go all over the place. They're all over the place. They're back in 1984 half the time or whatever it is that they do, and they're gaslighting you. And you know what? Let's stick to the facts. It redirects that conversation into where you are now instead of veering off into manipulation land, gaslighting land. Let's stick to the facts. And if they don't want to, you don't have to. You don't have to have this conversation right now because you know what? You can go right into phrase number 7, which is, I don't play this game. I don't play this game. Use this to shut down the manipulation right away. The trick is when you're delivering these lines, not to allow yourself to be triggered, not to allow yourself to get emotional. That's really, really, really important because you don't want to allow yourself to get pulled in, sucked in, drawn into the emotion of it. Because the more you can remain calm, the better you're going to be as far as being able to deliver all of this in a way that's not being drawn into the mud. Because if they bait you and go fishing and you're drawn into the mud, now they have you. Now they have you. I don't play this game. Just deliver it. Next one is number 8. We're almost halfway there. Number 8 is I'm not comfortable with that. And I have seen situations as a lawyer, and you guys know that I've been recognized by US News as one of the best lawyers in America. I've done trials, I've done mediations, thousands of them. I've seen a lot of situations where people have been asked to do things that aren't comfortable for them. If you have been asked to do things that you're not comfortable with, and I'm not just talking about signing agreements here. I mean, I've seen people who've been asked to do sexual things that they're not comfortable with, or social situations, all sorts of things that they're not comfortable with. You can set your boundaries. What's negotiable are contracts, issues, and terms. What's not negotiable is your self-worth, your self-respect, your self-esteem, who you are. I'm not comfortable with that is a very polite way of setting boundaries. And you cannot have leaky boundaries around who you are. That's how you got drawn into this in the first place. When you start to say things like, well, I just want to be nice. I don't want to be the bad person. That allows you to get drawn into doing things that are against your gut. I'm not comfortable with that is fine. It's a good thing to say. It's okay. You're allowed to be who you are. Give yourself permission to be who you are. Number 9 is this conversation is over. You are allowed to get up, stand up, walk away, and feel your sense of self-respect. Give yourself permission. It's essential for when a narcissist is being abusive, demeaning, judgmental, condescending, disrespectful. Give yourself permission. That's phrase number 9. Phrase number 10 is I'm choosing not to respond. And you're allowed to say that too. Give yourself permission to not respond. Great for deflecting baiting attempts. You can say things like that, right? That's your perspective. That's another one. Phrase number 11. That's your perspective. That's the way you think. It's not the way I think. I used to say that other lawyers, that sort of thing, even in situations like that, that's your perspective, not mine. It acknowledges their viewpoint without having to agree with them. It's like you're observing it. The next one is I'm not going to argue with you. I mean, I've been in social situations where people have said things that are just flat out wrong. That's fine. You don't have to agree with people. Once you get old enough, you start to realize, you know what? People can just say whatever comes out of their mouth, and who cares? What difference does it make? It just doesn't matter. They can say, think, or do whatever they want. It really doesn't matter. I'm not going to argue with you. Don't escalate situations. It just stops escalating situations in their tracks. So that's number 12. Number 13 is another, one that's sort of similar. And they hate this too. You know why? Because they want that supply. They're baiting, they're fishing, they're trying to get you into it. Come on. And you're going, no, not doing it. So phrase number 13 is, I won't participate in this. I'm not going to participate in this conversation. And especially when the conversation turns toxic, but they want you to so bad. So phrase number 14 is another one that's similar. That's an interesting opinion. It's an interesting perspective is another way to say that. Very neutral, very non-committal. It doesn't give them the reaction. They want reaction. They want supply. That's why they won't give you up a lot of times. They moved on sometimes to other supply, and you're like, why won't they leave me alone? Because they're looking for supply from you. That's why when you go to create your strategy, my SLAY method, strategy, leverage, anticipate in you, you've got to figure out a source of supply, that diamond level supply, that's more important for them to protect and defend than the supply that they get from jerking you around, and then threaten that source of supply. And that's what I teach you how to do in the SLAY method. Next is number 15. We made it here. We made it all the way to number 15. Do you know what it is? It's let's agree to disagree. Or another way I say it is I agree with you. I used to say to opposing counsel, we can disagree without being disagreeable. It's a way to end a circular argument. If one person is fully entrenched and another person is too, you're going to be parallel forever. You're never going to get anywhere. If you are in a situation where you just don't even know where to begin, you're thinking, I just don't know what to do. I mean, so many times people say to me, where do I start even dealing with this high conflict personality, right? I want to give you a place to start today where you can, by the end of this video, go, okay, now I've got something concrete, some place to go. I'm going to go back to that video and I've got some tools that I can actually use, that I can dive deep into and go, that's the thing. I actually feel more courageous today. I actually feel like I've got some baby steps that I can actually use, because what you're doing is you're actually righting a ship over here. You're actually turning your power around. If you've been conditioned by somebody, maybe it's a boss at work. It could even be that neighbor that you don't want to have to face, right? Especially if you're an empath or you're an empathetic person and, just kind of like, I just don't want to have to see that person. I want to give you those tools to make you feel a little bit better today. I always say, negotiate your best life. Today's a great day to start negotiating your best life. I hope you watch all the way to the end of this video, because that's what I say at the end of every single one of my videos. Today's a great day to start negotiating your best life, because I feel like negotiating your best life starts with the very first negotiating that you have to do with yourself in the morning for your own self-worth, right? Taking back your power. And that's what I feel like we have to do a lot of times, is use your own mindset. I want to give you some killer phrases today that are going to help you feel like, okay, I got something. I got something that I can start transforming those difficult situations, those difficult interactions. The very first thing you're going to have to do, though, is put that invisible barrier down around you and start looking at this person as if they are a toddler having a tantrum on the floor and you are just observing them. You start observing their behavior to them as if you're watching a toddler having a tantrum on the floor. I can see that you're upset. I can see that you're angry. That's the very first thing that I tell people to do, because you want to kind of almost take yourself out of it and not take things personally. So that's the first thing I really want you to do. You've got like this Teflon down around you, and then you've got like these Superman bullets coming off of you, and or the Wonder Woman bracelets on, because you've got to start doing that. And then just like kind of like pretend like you're just reporting the news, looking at them. All right. So I'm going to give you the 5 phrases, but the first thing I want you to do is just imagine that invisible barrier is coming down around you. And the other thing I'm going to tell you before I give you the 5 phrases is never jade. Right. So even though I love jade, I want you to remember, because, I'm half Chinese, so I do love jade, but I'm going to tell you to never jade, which is never justify, argue, defend, or explain. So never jade. And I want you to put that in the comments below. Never jade, never justify, argue, defend, or explain, because you're not going to do that. You're just going to observe their behavior to them. Phrase number 1 is, I understand your perspective. I understand your perspective. Here's another viewpoint. So you're acknowledging them. I hear you. I see you. I understand you. I see what you're saying. Anything of that nature is kind of that same sort of thing. And when you're acknowledging them and then you are introducing you're introducing them. I hear you. I see you. I understand you. I see where you're coming from, but here's another viewpoint. It especially works in a professional setting, but you can also Have it be in any kind of a setting, whether you're having a conversation with your spouse, you're having a conversation with your next door neighbor, whoever it is that you're having a conversation with, it definitely works. It turns any kind of disagreement into a constructive dialogue. If somebody is raging mad, you're still going to say, listen, I can see that you're angry. I can see that you're upset. We can have this conversation when you've calmed down. So you're definitely always going to do that, no matter who it is, no matter what it is. Phrase number 2 is, let's work to find a solution that's going to benefit us both, no matter who it is, no matter what it is. Even if you're dealing with a raging narcissist, and at some point in the conversation, that they're never going to agree on anything, you're still going to fluff or favor vomit later, which is what I call it. You're fluffing up their ego to ethically manipulate the manipulator, because down the road, you're probably going to have some kind of leverage that where you're going to close in on them and use what I call their diamond level supply to come up with a particular solution to threaten a source of supply that's more important for them to keep than the supply that they're getting from jerking you around. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you need to get my free Crush My Negotiation prep worksheet at winmynegotiation.com. I will help you get started with that. It's totally free. It's a free ebook. Many people have won their entire negotiations just on that. I think probably over 100,000 people have downloaded that. So go get it for free. The next one is, I appreciate your input, or thanks for the feedback, or something like that. That's an interesting perspective. Whatever you want to say that's somewhere along those lines. I need time to reflect on this. I will take that in. I will consider that. Something to that effect that makes them think that you are pondering whatever it is that they said. When you are making them think that you are taking a pause, that you are listening to their perspective, that's all they want a lot of times. Whether or not you're actually going to do it, consider whatever it is that they're asking you to consider. It does not matter in that moment, now does it? If it's a super high pressure situation where they're like pushing on you in that moment, tensions are super red hot, and you need for them to cool down, you just need to release some of that pressure in that moment. It's sort of like one of those steam pots, and you need to release that. I will consider it. Thank you for the feedback. I will pause. I will consider this. That's all you need to say in that moment. That will help you to diffuse. Does this make sense? Give me a yes in the comments below if this is making sense to you so far. So yes, makes sense. Give me a feedback, some comments. All right. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are so far, because I want you to have the power in your hands. And if you're trying to deal with this on your own, make sure that you join my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. I want to see you in there. I want to see you getting your power back as well. Next is, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. Can you clarify? Especially if you need some clarification, ask them to give you some clarification on that. It shows that you're actively listening, that you care, that you want more information. Even if you don't, so what? Make it seem like you do. Oh, get them talking. It gets, a lot of times, they tell you more on their position, gives you a little recon too. Many times I've gotten actually more information from the other side because they just happen to tell me on their own. Have them talk to you about that as well. That's another one that really, really works a lot of times. It also helps to avoid misunderstandings a lot of times, especially if you can follow up with a writing. Make sure you always do that anyway. Follow up with a text, follow up with an email. Appreciated the conversation that we had today. Here's what we discussed. Here's what we agreed upon. Even if it was just a text, can you please confirm that this is what we talked about? You're going to want to do that anyway. And finally, phrase 5 is, I respect our different opinions. Sometimes we're going to have to agree to disagree. I would say we can disagree without being disagreeable. That was one of my favorite phrases to use, especially with opposing counsel when I was practicing law full time and I had raging narcissist as opposing counsel who, oh my God, were so disagreeable many times. And they would be attacking me personally often. And I would say, we can disagree without being disagreeable. Perhaps we just need to, go to court on this particular matter. You don't need to be crazy about it. Acknowledge differences. Apparently we're not going to agree on this particular matter. That's okay. I respect your opinion. If you're in a work situation, you might even want to try to find common ground. Areas where you do agree, that often does help, because a lot of times when you do find strings, areas where you do agree, it does help to actually move things along. You find momentum as to where you do agree. So that all helps. So these are 5 killer phrases that will diffuse any conflict and help you move your situation that could be super high conflict, super red hot, super tense, stressful, and lower the temperature, lower the conflict, lower the stress level, and make life a lot easier for you.
Let's talk about that first verbal psychological trick to make an aggressive person sorry. Well, the first thing that you have to do is stop defending yourself. All right. You don't defend. Never come back with defending yourself. If you start pushing back right away, they're going to push back. You're going to push back, and nobody is going to get anywhere. I would say never Jade. I would say I love Jade because I'm half Chinese. So, but never Jade. Never justify, argue, defend, or explain. Because when you do that, you're just going to raise the temperature even more. And by the way, you're never going to convince them. You're never going to get them to go, oh, you know what? I see that now. I see your side. I didn't think of it that way. Especially if you're dealing with a narcissistic person, a high conflict person, they want to be right. It's all about them being right. If that's the type of person that you're dealing with, you got to just pull back. You got to pull back. You got to let go of the reins. You got to let go. If you're playing tug of war, right? You got to let go of that, because then somebody is like easing the tension there. So if you just let go and just let them be, then somebody is letting go of the reins and never justify, never argue, defend, or explain. So the first thing you got to do is never justify, argue, defend, or explain. Stop, okay? And let go. Really, the second thing is to let go. Just let go and let them be like that. Let them be like that, because you are going to have a strategy here that is going to be much more powerful. I call it ethically manipulating the manipulator here. You're going to come back from a much more powerful place, a much more strategic place, a much more tactical place. You don't want to be pushing back against them, because you do that, you get nowhere. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to actively listen. I want you to actively listen. And while you're actively listening, I want you to be validating them. I want you to be validating them. You're going to be saying things. I call it fluff or favor, vomit later in a lot of ways. But you're going to be actively listening, and you're going to be saying things like, oh, I hear you. I understand. I see what you're saying. I get that it must be hard for you. But you're going to be looking at them almost as if they're a toddler having a tantrum on the floor. When a toddler's having a tantrum on the floor, you don't go, oh my God, let me get on the floor with them and let me scream and have a tantrum along with them. You look at them and you're kind of like, oh, are you done yet? And always maintain your own level of respect. If they're not respecting you, you're out the door. But as long as they're respecting you, then you can stay in the room. And you're just looking at them, and your tone is even. Your tone is calm. And in some ways, you even want to like lower your voice. The lower your voice, the better it is. The calmer you are, the better it is. And by the way, while you're active listening, while you're giving them validation, make sure that you're always respectful too. That means no dirty fighting, no nothing like that, no cussing, no bad words, no name calling. You're maintaining your level of respect too, because as soon as you start getting into the trenches with them, now they're seizing on that. Oh, you called me the name. You said this, you said that. Now it's going to be all about that thing. So active listening, validation, respectful, calm. You don't go back. You don't push back. You let go. Active listening, validation. Now, the next thing I want you to do is use words like I feel, I feel, I feel hurt. I feel disrespected. You don't use words like you, because if you use words like you do this, you do that, they will be triggered. When you do that, they will be triggered. So you frame it in terms of I. And when you do that, they will be starting to listen to you more. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to start with areas of agreement and then work toward those areas where there might be more conflict, more areas of disagreement. So psychologically, now you're starting to have momentum. Well, I know that we can agree that we both want the best for our children. I know that we can agree that we both want whatever it is that you can find common ground on, then that's where you start. I know that we can both agree that we both should have respect for each other. Whatever it is that you can come up with, that there should be something that's an agreement on. Because the more that you can have an agreement with each other, and the more that you can have non-defensive communication, the more that you will lull that other person into believing that there's non-defensive communication, that you're in agreement on things, that you're now starting to have momentum on agreement on things. And now, hey, why lose the work that you've already done? Why get rid of that momentum? We're actually getting somewhere here. We're actually covering some ground. So let's not throw all of this away so far. Let's continue to work toward resolution since we've already gotten this far. And so now you've gotten this harmonious environment going. And as long as you don't stay triggered, you have to stay low to the ground. Don't allow yourself to be triggered. Even if they say something that's triggering to you, even if they say, you know that you're the one who always does blah, blah, blah. You're the one who's always late. You're the one who never does blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is that they try to barb you with or whatever, just let it go by. Let it go by you. Don't allow yourself to be pulled in, sucked in, brought in, because if you do, then you're going to be right back where you started again. Is this making sense? Give me a yes in the comments if this is making sense so far. It's not an easy thing to do, okay? And that's why I have free phrases for disarming narcissists, which I definitely highly recommend that you get at disarmthenarc.com. Make sure you grab those, because you will need them. You will need them for emails, for your text messages, for your communication in general. Make sure you grab those. They are totally free. And join my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung, for additional support as well. When you're faced with hostility, when you're faced with isolation, when you're faced with somebody who's trying to gaslight you and make you think you're crazy, you do want a community of support. You do want a community of people who are surrounding you, bathing you with light, bathing you with love, who are telling you that you're okay, that you are actually the one who's not the crazy one. You want to be surrounding yourself with people who can help you. Make sure the last thing is that you're working toward a constructive solution. Let them know we're working toward a constructive solution. Let's continue to work toward a constructive solution that's going to be good for everybody involved. Whether or not you believe that, or whether or not they believe that, use words like that. Use words that will allow them to believe, hear, and see that, oh, we want to work cooperatively, constructive solution that's working about positive working relationship or positive relationship that's good for the children, or whatever it is that, the buzzwords that they want to hear, so that it makes it seem like everybody's on the same page. Those are the verbal psychological tricks that calm aggressive people down. And if they say things that are like trying to make you angry, instead of responding with anger, respond with curiosity. See, oh, that's interesting. Why would you say that? Oh, that's interesting. Why would you do that? Don't fight back like that.
Today, we are diving into why we overuse the word sorry and how it can actually disempower us, especially in high conflict situations. More importantly, I'm going to share what you can say instead so that you can actually have a substitute so that you can actually get your power back and have a tool so that, in your little arsenal that you will have right there at the ready instead. All right. So saying sorry actually stems from a place, maybe from a good place in some ways. It really is an empathic response a lot of times. A lot of times it stems from not wanting to have conflict, wanting to be the good person, maybe wanting to look like you are getting along with people. A lot of times it's because you have an empathic nature, an empathetic nature, and you are tuned to the emotions of the other person. You're worried about the other person's feelings and you don't want to hurt the other person. You're immediately going, oh, I'm sorry. You don't want to hurt that other person, right? And so that's a lot of times why you do say sorry. But sometimes it is a trauma response because it could be that you experienced past traumas and you were maybe more frequently made to feel like you were at fault, especially if there was a narcissistic history in your past, and gaslighting or emotional manipulation was present. And so you feel like, oh, let me overcome this stress and anxiety by just constantly overly apologizing, right? That could be a response as well. It could be because you were raised in a culture where you were frequently blamed or taught to put other people first. And so you develop a habit of overly apologizing. Sometimes it is a reflection of deeper issues, but regardless of where it comes from, why it happens, is still not necessarily a great thing, because when it happens, it can be a situation that it devalues you. It can cause you to not necessarily get the respect and honor that you deserve. And it can disempower you. It can cause people to disrespect you. It can actually cause you to not have the confidence that you might want to have as well. What I want to do here is give you some scenarios where you might automatically say sorry when perhaps you could say something else instead that would still communicate a message that where the other person feels heard and gives them the feeling that they matter, which is what you're trying to communicate anyway, and allows you to not say sorry. So here's one example. One example might be where you're running late. And again, like that is not something that, you would want to be doing normally. Okay. And you do want to let the other person know that their time is valuable, that you respect them, that you honor them, but you want to shift your language to be something where you're communicating with confidence, with clarity, where you're standing in your authentic power. So you might want to say, instead of sorry, you might want to say, thank you for your patience. This not only acknowledges that other person and acknowledges their time, lets them know that you are being considerate of them. It also keeps you in that position of strength. And another one is if you're in a meeting and you have a differing opinion, instead of saying, sorry, but I see it differently, you can say, I see it differently. Instead of saying sorry, just say, I see it differently, and here's why. This approach opens up a dialogue without diminishing your perspective. Or you can even say, I can see your perspective, but here's why I see it differently. A lot of times you can acknowledge their perspective. I acknowledge your perspective, but I see it differently, and here's why. Because that way you are acknowledging them. I see your perspective. Make sure you don't interrupt, but just, you can say, I'd like to add a point here, something to that effect. That approach acknowledges them. It allows the conversation to continue, but you're not necessarily agreeing, and you're certainly not apologizing. Another way that you can not apologize is declining a request for an invitation. A lot of times you might say, I'm sorry, I can't make it. But sometimes you just don't want to go, or you're just tired, or you don't have the time that you want to give to that. You might want to just say, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the invitation. However, I have a prior commitment. Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate you thinking of me. Unfortunately, I am previously engaged. Just thank you for the invitation. You don't have to say, sorry, I can't make it. That response shows appreciation to them, appreciation for the offer, firmly states that you are unavailable. No guilt, no apology, no sorry. Thank you. I appreciate you. Please think of me in the future. You can always say that too. When asking for clarification or help, instead of saying, sorry, can you explain this again? You can say, I would appreciate clarity on this. By phrasing your request this way, you show that you value understanding whatever it is that they're trying to convey to you means something to you. Most people would want that, whatever it is that they're trying to convey to you, if they're trying to convey information to you. You're being proactive in gaining the information or getting the information, whatever it is that they're trying to convey to you. If this is helpful for you so far, I want you to put sorry, not sorry in the comments below. And what has helped you the most so far? Which phrase has helped you the most so far? I would love to know in the comments below. I would love to get a dialogue going for this so far. The next one is when you need more time to complete a task. I really think that this is important because you do need to stay in integrity and keep your word to things. So if you have committed to getting something done by a certain date, you do need to go back to the person and say, I'm not going to be able to get it done when I said I was going to. Don't just not do it, because then you are out of integrity and you haven't kept your word. That's not okay either. Your word should be solid to yourself and to the other person, and it should mean something. But don't say sorry. You might want to say something like this: I'm giving this the attention that it deserves, and we'll have it completed by X date. This way you stay in your power. You always want to phrase things in a way that keeps you standing in your power. How can you phrase something that demonstrates that you're standing in your power. I'm giving this the attention that it deserves, that you deserve. I don't want it to be rushed. I don't want you to have a product that has been rushed. I'm committing to you that it will be completed by Saturday, December, whatever. That demonstrates your commitment to them. It demonstrates your commitment to your word. It demonstrates your commitment to quality. It also acknowledges that there was a deadline on X date. That you're not trying to thwart that particular deadline. You did know that there was one on that day. So I want you to start noticing how often you say sorry and consciously replace it with these empowering alternatives, because it's not just about changing a word. This is about transforming how you view yourself. It's about transforming how you view yourself in relationship to other people as well. I think a lot of times we have heightened sensitivity to others. We want to be perceived as polite. We don't want to be perceived as overly aggressive, especially as women. I'm sure that there's men watching here too, but I think a lot of times we want to be perceived as likable. So we might stick the word sorry in there because we think that it might make us more likable. That's not necessarily true. I just want you to know that that's not necessarily true. And I do have phrases for disarming narcissists for those of you who are dealing with narcissists, and you can get those at disarmthenarc.com. For those of you who are dealing with narcissists or high conflict personalities, you can get those at disarmthenarc.com. So grab those there, disarmthenarc.com, and make sure that when you're talking to people, you have eye contact, you're looking forward, you're looking straight, you speak clearly at a moderate pace, you use confident language. Don't use language that is sort of like maybe, or if you want to, or you don't have to, or just like be really confident in how you speak. You want to appear powerful. You have to be authentic. And you want to stand in your power and stay positive, believing in your abilities, believing in your self-worth. That naturally enhances your authority as well. How you appear to others, that really helps as well. One of my favorite holiday traditions is baking cookies with my daughter. We've done it every year since she was little. And now, even though we're miles apart, I can see those memories come to life again right here on my Aura frame. What if you could give a gift that brings your holidays to life all the time, every single day? And with an Aura frame, you can. I absolutely love how easy it is. You can preload the photos before you ship it as a gift, and then you can actually remotely continue to add to it. It includes photos and videos all for free, and it comes packaged in a beautiful gift box, no price tag. Can't wrap togetherness, but you can frame it with Aura Frame. And for a limited time, you can visit auraframes.com and get $45 off Aura's best-selling carver mat frame, named #1 by Wirecutter, using the promo code Rebecca at checkout. That's auraframes.com. Promo code Rebecca. This exclusive Black Friday Cyber Monday deal is their best of the year, so order now before it ends, and make sure you mention the show when you go to checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
How do you do that?
Well, basically staying calm and matter of fact and using the CARS method. And that's in the book. And I know you wanted to talk to me about that. So
yeah, absolutely. Because I think that is where our listeners can glean the most help, because the ones who are reaching out to us, they're already in the high conflict divorce process. They are desperate for help, and the help is in 5 types of people who will ruin your life. You have set out very clear methodology to neutralize or manage conflict in those types of situations. And so I did want to definitely hone in on another one of your acronyms, CARS, C-A-R-S, because I think this is the meat of what people can really pull from to get through this time and to manage what's going on. So I know that C, let's start with the first letter, sounds like a good place, it stands for connecting.
Yes.
So maybe we can do a deep dive into connecting.
Yeah. So the idea, and you said the right word, which is you want to manage the situation, manage the relationship. Don't make your goal changing the other person, because that's all the stuff that backfires. So make your goal managing the relationship, just try to keep it relatively calm. So connecting. And by the way, all four of these are the opposite of what you feel like doing. So when you feel like yelling at them or running the other way, is instead connect with them with empathy, attention, and respect. And that's the ear statements that you mentioned earlier. And the idea is you just want to have a positive connection. And believe it or not, people with high conflict personalities want to have positive relationships. And so when they're coming at you negatively, just respond to them positively as connect. And so empathy, attention, and respect, you can give them some empathy and say, wow, I can see how frustrated you are by this. This is a hard situation. These are big decisions. And that's one thing you can do. Another is to say, I'll pay attention. Tell me more. I want to understand your point of view, your proposal, whatever it is. And R is respect. I respect your efforts. I respect your time with our child. I respect your preparation for this financial decision. So something has to be true. Don't make something up. So something you can respect. I respect, the job you did yesterday. That was really helpful. So the idea is empathy, attention, and or respect. And so that's a way to connect with people rather than yelling at them to calm down, is to also show that yourself as being calm, confident, we can deal with this, let's see what we can do. So it's
I think a lot of times what people want to, the natural reaction is to get into whatever it is that they're saying. Like if they say something like, for example, you had the kids this weekend, you didn't feed them anything at all, you starved them, blah, 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 whatever. You're a horrible father. The natural reaction, I think, for people is to say, no, this is what I fed them. I'm a good dad. Here are all the ways that I'm a good dad. They end up being sucked into that vortex.
Yes.
And so what I used to tell people, or I still tell people, is, don't respond directly to each and every single allegation.
Yeah.
Because that's what that's the natural reaction. If you're being attacked, you want to respond to that.
Right. And that's a mistake. Because with high conflict people, now you're in the quicksand with them and you're playing their game, and so they're going to win and you're going to lose. So it's much better to sidestep that with an ear statement and connect with them and say, well, thanks for telling me your concerns. I'll think about that. Rather than you're wrong, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean
the facts are going to change their mind.
Yeah, right. You're not
going to happen.
But you don't have to agree with them either. So you can say, well, thank you for telling me your concerns. I hear you. Okay. Yeah. And with that, when we get into the other parts of CARS, you might also say, and I think I'm doing a fine job, and other people have said that too. So you don't accept their criticism, but you don't fight with it. It's just, well, we'll just have to agree to disagree on that one, but thanks, and have a good week.
That felt a little biffy.
Yeah, right. There's overlap in the tone of your statements and BIFF responses, because
Sure.
you're not fighting with them. You're just keeping it on the positive.
Yep.
So the A in CARS stands for analyzing, and that involves talking about the choices or options that people have. It may sound confusing to our listeners, but it can be effective. And maybe, could you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, first of all, think of the brain, and we have different parts of the brain we respond with. And I tend to think in terms of right and left hemispheres, even though the higher parts, higher thinking, and lower parts. But generally, right brain thinks more about relationships, is where we get more defensive energy. Left brain's more logic, problem solving, etc. So connecting with ear calms the right brain, and now you want to focus them on more left brain problem solving. So having choices makes you think. Having to make proposals makes you think. Writing things down makes you think. And so we want to get people thinking. We want to calm them, but then focus them on things. And I think just focusing them on a choice, here you've got a choice, you've got alternatives, analyze, decide what you want to do with this choice, gets away from arguing about the past. So here's a combination. So someone complains, like you said, the thing about the weekend, so you think I'm a horrible parent and I didn't feed the kids this weekend. So I say, well, okay, thanks for letting me know your point of view. I'll think about that. And let's look in the future to what our choices are. Like Wednesday, we've got this baseball game, and who's going to go and who's going to be with the child, or can I pick up the child, or whatever. So you get them focused forward on a choice. And so analyzing is using your analyzing brain, not your reacting brain. So that's connect and then analyze a choice, analyze a proposal, analyze something in writing, get people thinking about the future rather than defending the past. So connect and then help analyze. Say, here's what I see your choices are.
And then, then it moves to R, the R in CARS, which stands for responding, which does take us to BIFF, I think, which I'm happy that R is responding and is BIFF, because I think that is a method that can help any listener. So could you just expound on that a little bit?
Yeah. So R is responding to their hostility or their misinformation without arguing with it. And the easiest way is using BIFF responses. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And so BIFF is being brief, informative, just straight information, friendly tone, and firm, meaning you end the discussion. You don't say, well, what do you think about that, buddy? You don't invite a new argument, which so many people do in high conflicts, that they can't let go of it. And it's just matter of fact. All of this is calm, confident, matter of fact. Don't look rattled. Try to, if you're rattled inside, pretend you're not rattled on the outside, because that just escalates the other person. So just keep it calm. And that's why writing is so helpful. And BIFF, because you can think about it. You can go, okay, I'll send this tomorrow, this response. So you're not getting stuck in there. But it's responding to hostility or misinformation. Sometimes they'll say something that's not true. You didn't, 2 weeks ago, you were half an hour late. And actually you were on time. And so you can say, oh, you may not be aware of it, but actually on January 17th, I was on time because I came straight from work. And you may remember that evening I took the kids to, such and such on time. So you're not saying you're wrong. You just say, here's the information. And so have a good weekend. And You know,
Well, in situations like that, you also have to really notate everything, keep good records, because you will be accused of things like that. You didn't show up, half the time last week or whatever. You were late. You were supposed to call at 7 and you didn't. They will say things like that.
yeah, I really agree. Is keeping records of any potentially controversial event, keeping records of parenting time, etc., doctor's visits, all these kinds of things. It's good because it's people with personality disorders or high conflict people, which a lot of overlap there, tend to distort information. And so they put a spin on it, the all or nothing spin, or they jump to conclusions, or they use emotional reasoning. I feel it's true, so it must be true. And so writing things down is really one of the best ways. And if you do end up in court and you made notes the same day that something happened, you're a lot more credible than if you go, well, yeah, I think last year I did that. I don't know what day it was. And it's like, that's pretty fuzzy. So
Yeah.
you gotta write things down the same day that they happen. But
We actually,
giving this information is so important. And you can just say, oh, well, my notes say I did pick them up on time that day. Yeah, it was 7 p.m. or 5:30. That's one of the days, that I did it straight from work. So,
yeah.
and that's the end. You don't say, so you're an idiot and so you're wrong. You just say, here's the information. You may not be aware of that. But that day, I was on time for these reasons.
Yeah, we actually recommend to a lot of our clients that they use some of the new co-parenting apps like FAIR. We had the Michael Daniels, the creator of FAIR, on, and he actually has an element to the app that allows for checking in. So you can actually use the app to geo-check in to show that you were somewhere at a certain time, but it also allows you to keep records and take notes in that contemporaneous fashion, and then the reports can just be downloaded for court. So there are a lot of ways for these days, that technology allows people to keep track of a lot of that.
Right.
Yeah,
And it avoids a lot of arguments.
And Michael actually developed that part of his app because he was accused of something and ended up only being able to prove he was somewhere because he happened to have a toll receipt, because he took a toll road and it had the time stamp on there. And so he was able to prove where he was, but without that, he wouldn't have been able to prove it. So he developed this part of the app to help others not have to deal with that same thing. But, a lot of what you say is, I think, easier said than done for people because they're so emotional. And really what you're saying is, remain calm. Don't get into the thick of it with them. And when you're being attacked, sometimes it can be difficult. So I like the S part of your cars because I think it really kind of helps tie up that piece of it where, it's so difficult sometimes when you're being attacked not to want to respond. So talk about the S and setting limits.
Yeah. So setting limits is so common of an issue with high conflict people because they don't stop themselves. That's why they keep going. They don't have the self-restraint. And so individually and as a society, we need to set limits. That's why family courts have become so busy with restraining orders. When I started practicing law in 1993, restraining orders were less than 1% of what we spent time on. And now it's a huge part of family law practice.
Yes.
So stopping people, setting limits, letting them know what they can and can't do, what your consequences will be. If they do this, I'll do that. And so keep in mind, you can't control the other person, but you can say, if you do this, I'm going to have to do that. Or if you don't do this, I won't be able to do this other thing that I've been doing for you. And so it's getting them again to think ahead about the consequences, about the future. So you're saying, I won't participate in it. If you talk to me that way, I'm going to have to stop the conversation. I think of, for example, I represented a mother who'd been a victim of domestic violence or survivor of domestic violence. And her ex-husband-to-be represented himself. And he'd call me up and he'd say, now you tell that such and such that we have to do this and this. And I'll say, you can't talk about my client that way. That's very disrespectful. And he said, well, I'll talk about her any way I want. So you tell that such and such. And I'll say, sorry, but if you speak to me that way, I'm going to have to hang up and end the conversation. So please don't speak about my client that way. Well, I don't care. I'm going to do, okay, I'm hanging up now. You made your decision. Goodbye. And so it's letting people know you can set personal limits, who you'll talk to, when you'll talk, what topics you'll talk about, all of those things. Now, of course, if you're in a dangerous situation, just get out of the situation. Don't give them ear statements. Don't give them choices. Get yourself out of the situation. But most of the time, people can just say, this is what I'm willing to do and what I'm not willing to do. So S is setting limits, letting people know what's okay, what's not okay, but just very briefly. And you can do this with empathy, attention, and respect. You know, I'm sorry I have to do this, but blah, blah, blah. Actually, that violates something else I teach, which don't apologize to angry, upset, high conflict people, because then you may use it as ammunition. So what I've tried to do is replace I'm sorry with I'm saddened by. And so I'll say, well, I'm saddened by this, that I have to say no, but I have to say no to this request that you've made. So you can give them some empathy at the same time that you're setting the limit. I teach judges that. I say, make all the orders you need to make, but tell people, look, you know, I know this is a hard time, and I hope someday you'll appreciate that by stopping this behavior, you're benefiting much more in the long run.
That's a great substitution. I like it saddens me or it pains me to do this, as opposed to I'm sorry, because I think that is a natural response to say I'm sorry.
Right.
But especially for women, I think we tend to say sorry more than we should, you know, in situations like that. I mean, or you could even say it's disappointing that we have to do this, but
that's a great point.
Yeah. So you don't have to be harsh to set limits. And someone suggested one day, and I like this, is think of The Godfather. If you watch Godfather movies, The Godfather's hard to hear because he whispers when he's setting limits. And it's like, you know, pretty powerful, pretty dangerous, but it's not the volume of your voice. It's how firm and consistent you can be in following through. And that's the other thing, is people have to realize you may have to repeat all of the aspects of the CARS method over and over again. And it's okay. Repetition often helps people go, oh, now I get it. You're not willing to talk to me about that subject. Okay.
Finding conflict during high conflict situations, especially when you're dealing with challenging individuals, is really, really crucial for effective negotiation. And especially even if you're just communicating with somebody and maintaining that sense of self, especially when you're trying to keep your credibility. So here are some strategies to really build and sustain confidence in these scenarios. First of all, make sure that you are over prepared. When I was dealing with trial, I would be over prepared. That is one of the keys to having confidence before entering that high conflict situation. If you can't always do this. I mean, you don't always know when you're going to be in a high conflict situation, but if you do know that you're going to be in a situation, thoroughly prepare. Understand the key issues, understand what their positions are going to be. Know your position, but know their position too. I have a free Crush My Negotiation Prep worksheet that is 15 pages. You can get it at winmynegotiation.com. I teach you how to do that. Your side, their side as well. Anticipate potential challenges, plan your responses. This preparation will help you build your confidence and make sure that you feel in control and help you feel equipped to handle the conversation. Okay. The next thing is stay centered and calm. High conflict situations can be very emotionally challenging, very emotionally charged. That's why I want you to make sure you are fully prepared ahead of time. I always have people go through all of their risks ahead of time. What's your worst case scenario? What's your best case scenario? What's your choke point? Some people call it, some of my clients in the past have called it their vomit point, whatever you want to call it. But I have people do it ahead of time because the day of can be very emotionally charged. So practice feeling calm and centered ahead of time. Techniques such as deep breathing, mindfulness, positive affirmations. In my high conflict certification training, we do certain types of breathing. I teach you how to breathe so that you can maintain that composed demeanor, which in turn boosts confidence. When we're really, really stressed, we breathe very, very shallowly, and that does not oxygenate your cells. I always say oxygenate to dominate. Assertive communication is the next one. Use clear and direct assertive communication to express your thoughts. You say it respectfully, but practice using I statements instead of you statements, so you're not sounding aggressive, but you say I statements. And I would stay away from things like saying, I will try to, or, if you want to. Don't say things like that. You say, this is what I want. This is how it can be handled. You want to sound assertive. You want to make sure that you sound assertive without sounding aggressive, but make sure that you are sounding like you know what you want. You don't want to be passive. Assertive communication is key in high conflict situations because you want the person to respect you, especially when you're dealing with difficult personalities, because they will roll over you. They will not respect you. If you give them an inch, they will take that. So here are some examples of assertive communication. So I'm going to give you examples. I understand your point, but I see things differently. Here's my perspective. Very, very assertive, but respectful. I understand your point, but I see things differently. Here's my perspective. This phrase acknowledges their side, but you're stating your point confidently before stating your own. It's respectful, but clear. You're getting ready to express a differing opinion. Here's another one. I appreciate your input. And you can say it nicely. You can even say it with a little bit of a smile. I appreciate your input. And don't say it sarcastically. Be very careful not to say things sarcastically or in an emotionally charged way. I appreciate your input, but I have to set a boundary here. I must set a boundary regarding, and then you can state whatever it is that you're setting a boundary about. Setting boundaries is a crucial part of assertive communication. This phrase does so respectfully, and it does so indicating your limits while acknowledging the other person's contribution. The next one is I feel blank, whatever the situation is. I feel hurt or I feel uncomfortable when that is discussed. I'd prefer if we could blank. Using I feel statements is a classic assertive technique. I feel disrespected when that is whatever. And honestly, you can say this after you give the person credit for something. Oh, thank you for what you've done for me for this. I appreciate it. It expresses your feelings without blaming the other person. And it suggests a preferred solution. I'd prefer if we could blank. So that's the next one. Another one is I need to have my concerns addressed as well. Let's find a way to ensure both of our needs are met. This phrase emphasizes the importance of their needs while remaining open to collaborative solutions. So it's both assertive and cooperative at the same time. So another one that I really like is you can just straight up say, I disagree, and here's why. But you can just say it in a way that is completely respectful. One of the things I used to say a lot to opposing counsel is we can disagree without being disagreeable. I used to say sometimes if we can't agree on this particular issue, we can just take it to trial and that's fine. You know, in other words, for me as a lawyer, I would just, you know, express to the opposing counsel, let's not be personal about this. If we need to take this to trial, that's fine, but I'm not going to start throwing barbs and make it personal. Obviously, that's not, you know, you can do in certain situations, right? But you can just say, I disagree with what you said, and here's why. And then follow up with clear, rational reasons, reasoned arguments for why you want to strengthen your position. Always be as specific as you can. Well, you know, don't say, well, you always do this and you always do that. When you use always and nevers, that's when the person goes, always, I always do this. I never do that. That's when you've lost credibility, because then they go to that. Okay. So you want to be really, really specific in your argument. The more specific that you can be, the more credibility you will have. You know, the next one you might want to do is something like, I value our relationship. And that's why it's important for me to express this. If you say that, then it's extremely persuasive. I really value our working relationship. I really value working here. I really value you as a boss. I really value you as a client. I really value our relationship, you as a spouse. I really value you as a whatever. And that's why it's important for me to express how I truly feel about this. Expressing the value you place on a relationship sets a positive tone, and it justifies the need for honest communication and open communication. And I respect you way too much not to say this. You are so good at blah, blah, blah. And that's why I want to hold us to a higher standard, acknowledging that the need to be at a higher standard. You're expressing your position clearly and confidently. You're not being aggressive, but you're not being passive either. You're being assertive. It demonstrates your respect for the other party. It demonstrates that you think highly of them. It's focusing on empowerment. It's focusing on integrity. It's focusing on effective communication. Remember to always focus on facts. Focus on facts. Come back to facts, but come back to what is so. Don't allow for getting personal. High conflict individuals are always going to go to getting personal. Get back to focusing on facts. That's how they use emotional manipulation, by the way. Get back to logic. Well, I hear what you're saying, but let's get back to the facts. Let's get back to how we can get back to what the issues are. Stay to your boundaries. Stick to your boundaries. What's negotiable? Contracts, issues, terms. What's not negotiable? Your self-respect, your self-esteem, who you are as a person. All right. Be very clear about those boundaries. Stick to them. Never, ever, ever allow the person to come at you. Don't allow them to escalate that situation. Listen actively, do your fluff or favor vomit later thing. Stick with a confident response. Okay, well, how can we move this forward? What would be an ideal outcome for you? Seek support when you need to. You can't be isolated in this.
So I want to just ask you from the place of transformation, because you are so dedicated to helping people and empowering people in their personal journeys. And that's something that it's really been a mission for you. What would be the advice that you have, especially, I think, as far as seeking support and maybe from networks or and helping people transform.
Yeah, I tell you, as you know, my husband died not too long ago, and I've always been a very solitary person. It's been me and him, me and him, me and him. We didn't need nobody. I mean, sometimes we wouldn't let the kids in the house. I mean, it was just like, it's us, it's us, it's us. And I have girlfriends, but I never really spent any time, you know what I mean? And those girlfriends got me through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the calls at 2 a.m., the hysteria, they never cared. One of them was suffering from leukemia. She didn't tell me until I was at a place where I could hear that because my husband had just died. So support, I mean, even to JD Salinger level recluse is immeasurable. The importance of that decides whether there are days where you just don't perform and days where you can get out of bed, because you couldn't always get out of bed, you know, and a lot of times and some of them, I had different kinds of friends for different things. There was a girlfriend I call always make me laugh. You know, there's both will get mad with me. Got another girlfriend whose life is messed up. So we talk about her messed up life. So support is invaluable, and you have to make sure you're asking the right person for the right kind of support. Because there's some people, you know, there were some people I could not tell how much I was drinking. There were some people who I told exactly how much I was drinking so they could hold me account to it, so it wouldn't get too bad. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
And you got to have the right person for the right thing, because one person will help me stop, another person will yell at me for doing it.
So good. And I so appreciate your honesty and your vulnerability. You've always been so good with that. And it's so immensely and immeasurably helpful to the community. And I just really, really want to acknowledge.
Can I say something about that quickly?
Yes.
I got the most bizarre direct mail from somebody I went to high school with, who told me that they were going to expose me as a fake and a fraud because of my fake Southern accent, and I pretend like I'm from the ghetto. And she says, I know you not from the ghetto, and that show Judge Me Not, and you're a liar, and you're going to be exposed, and wait till all the kids, the people that you went to school, tells everybody that you don't tell anybody the truth. Now, that person is unhappy. It got nothing to do with me. That person is unhappy because I've always been if it happened, it happened. I did it, and I speak the way I speak. And what she didn't realize also is that Black people speak, when we are amongst ourselves, differently than we do out in the larger world. We just do. So when I would have Black litigants, my vernacular would change a bit. But I used to arraign like 70 people in the morning. My vernacular changed person to person to person, because you're not talking to a defendant. You're talking to Joe, Barbara, Ann, Felicia. And if you don't know who you're talking to, they won't understand what you're saying because you won't say it correctly. But I don't know. I just found that fascinating. She just posted it the other day. It was like, you're going to be exposed as a liar. And I'm like,
You know what? Never justify, argue, defend, or explain.
I plead guilty.
Rise above. You know what? Right. Waves cannot coexist with light waves.
Right. There you go.
That is my mantra.
I love that. I love that.
You know, some people are just
nuts.
You know, and I just like, you know what I always think with people like that? I'm like, I never take a look at people that I would like want to diss or whatever and think, I'm going to get out my laptop and write them a note and send them a letter telling them how much I don't like them. I would
Yeah,
never
now if
even
you
be
ran
doing
into me
that.
at the store, it's one thing, but to take your time to post
I would
it.
never even do that. I'm so busy with my own stuff. Like, I would never even take the time to do that.
I was just like, that is so interesting.
And so I'm thinking, okay, so you must obviously think highly of me if you're going to spend the time to do that.
I mean, a long post, you know, so I was like, I shared it with my
So they
girlfriend and
obviously
we
are an
howled.
admirer.
Yeah, we
You know?
howled. It was funny.
Yeah.